Hello creative friends! In this video, we're going to try something totally different with Resincrete. We're going to pour it. We're going to paint it. We're going to stamp it. We're going to sticker it. Put stickers on it. You know what I mean. And we're going to cover it with some UV resin while making some really cool one-of-a-kind pendants. So let's get started. If you've been following this channel, you've seen me do all kinds of things with Resincrete. Pour it in molds, make magnets, but I've never poured it into a bezel. So today I've got some different varieties and shapes of open back and closed back bezels. We're gonna pour it in and see what happens. We're gonna get out some UV resin tape and do like we would when we were pouring UV resin and just hope that it doesn't leak and that it works. So I'm going to put my bezels down on the tape. We've got a fun variety of shapes and sizes to play with, so I'm pretty excited to experiment with all of these new ideas. And then burnish them and rub them in really good using the silicone mat that I have underneath to help give it some cushion to push it into and really adhere to that tape. Gonna also flip them over and burnish the back side. I just really want to get a good seal. I don't want my Resincrete leaking out all over. And then we're gonna try a lot of different techniques to show you just how versatile Resincrete is. It's just powder that you mix with water to create this eco-friendly pouring medium. No stickies, no smellies. It's really awesome to work with and it cures in 30 minutes. Super quick. So this whole project can take you minutes to accomplish. You've got about 8 minutes working time before it starts to set. So have everything ready to go before you begin mixing. On most of these, I want to leave a little room at the top because we're going to be doing some cool things and filling them with UV resin. And I am working on a leveling table by J. Diction, which I love this thing. So far, so good. Nothing's leaking. It looks great. And because these are so thin, they're actually going to cure super quick, even quicker than the 30 minutes. I have my closed back bezels on a little popsicle stick just so that they're level because they didn't lay flat like my open back ones. Aside from this really cool Victorian looking bezel, and something surprised me about this is the Resincrete actually domed up a little when I poured it and stayed put. So cool and so unexpected. This one looks totally vintage and Victorian, and that's kind of gonna be the theme we're going with, kind of distressed, old, vintage looking. And here's a little glance at all of those, all cured and ready to go. I have a variety of rubber stamps, I have some transfer stickers, I have some UV transfer stickers, and I've got some watercolor paint. We're going to experiment and play with all of these things to see what results we get. I'm going to start with this nice, deep, big, round bezel because it has a little bit of a blemish on the side. I accidentally got permanent marker on it. I got a packet of Halloween UV DTF stickers because it's the spooky season. But what I really want out of this packet is the trees and the ravens or crows. I love crows and ravens. They get a bad rap, but they're really cool. They're really smart. Now, from my past experience, I'm pretty sure that this sticker is not going to adhere to the Resincrete without a seal on it. And as I figured, it is not going to stick. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a thin layer of UV resin to give that sticker something to adhere to. And I kind of want this raven tree to have a cool kind of smoky edge, kind of a vignette. So I'm going to take some black mica powder and mix that into the resin along the edges and give it a kind of wispy, smoky effect. Well, that's what I'm going for anyway. Once that's done, I'm gonna cure it under my UV lamp for just a minute. And here is that first layer. Now our UV DTF sticker should adhere perfectly to this resin. And it came off without a single flaw, and we're ready to move on. Next, I'm going to take some of my Let's Resin's white transparent colored resin. This resin I thought would be great for just giving it a little bit of a soft misty look around the edges. So I put that around the outside of the ring, and then I fill the middle with clear UV resin, blend that together a bit at the edges, and then I decide I think I need a little bit more of that smoky look around the edges. So I go back in with a little bit of my mica pigment, pop those bubbles under the UV lamp for a couple of minutes, and then I'm going to finish it off with a clear domed top coat. We are going to do more with these pieces to make them jewelry or keychains in the end, but for now, this is what we've got, and I kind of love it. I really like it a lot. But for now, let's move on to our next piece. I love this rectangle shape of this pendant, and I think I want to go with another kind of a zen black and white feel. I've got these cool tree stamps. I'm going to be using my Onyx Black. This is a just stamping pad, but it's archival. And so once it dries, it won't bleed when we put resin on it. I'm going to take it off the block so that I can push the stamp down into the Resincrete pendant. And where it didn't quite match up to the edges, I'm just taking a Sharpie fine point and I'm finishing that off. And you can't even tell the difference. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that UV white transparent resin and I'm going to put that around the edges. Put some clear in the middle. Blend those edges together before popping it under the UV lamp. And now I'm going to give this a domed top coat of just clear UV resin. If you just push it to the edges, it really stays put, and every now and then it'll go over the edges, but the more you do this, the better you get at doming your resin. Remember, the higher the viscosity, the thicker the resin. So if you're doming, try to use a bit higher viscosity of a UV resin. I'm going to pop those bubbles, and here is what this one looks like. I think it's really zen and simple and clean. However, I kind of want the edges to be a little more foggy looking. And here's something that you can do. You've seen me use this nail buffing block before to sand down things or smooth edges. But if you use the really fine sandpaper part, it'll give the edges a kind of foggy glass look while keeping it smooth to the touch. So I'm just going to go around the edges and do that. It might be kind of hard to see on camera, but here's what that looks like once I have fogged up the edges a little more with my sanding block. All right, let's switch gears. We're going to use a different kind of transfer sticker. These are really delicate. They're not the UV kind. So I think they will stick to the Resincrete without it being sealed. Normally I work with actual real dried flowers, but I thought I'd give this a try. Let's start with some greenery. And yes, it's stuck perfect to the Resincrete without the seal. It's just a different kind of sticker. It's not UV. And I'll put links to all of my supplies down below. There are discount codes, so if you want to give any of these a try, they're right there, easy peasy for you. I'm going to put a clear coat of resin on this, pop it under the light, and then I'm going to add some more layers, some more stickers. And you can see how easily these tear. So I just take pieces and I just kind of build it as I go because I ended up tearing this a lot. It took me a while to realize to leave a lot of edge around the stickers so that when you're working with it, your finger doesn't touch the actual sticker and tear it. That looks really pretty. Let's add one more flower. It's the coldest hand. I think this already kind of has the faded vintage feel, so I'm just going to use clear resin on this piece. Pop those bubbles, put it under my UV lamp, and here is what we've got. And a pretty nice dome top coat on that. Moving on, we're going to try to watercolor paint our Resincrete. I've got my little travel watercolor kit. I'm no pro though. I just do it for fun. And I'm just gonna blend some kind of Halloween-y colors because I'm gonna go for another raven and tree branch scene. Who else loves this time of year? The fall colors, the fall leaves, the change in season. Here in Florida, we finally get some cooler mornings where you can actually go outside without dying of heat stroke. Be sure to let your watercolor dry all the way before you move on to stamping and resining it. I'm going to use a part of this tree stamp. And I forgot to take it off the block so that I could push it down in there really well. And so my initial stamp did not work. I quickly took a baby wipe and wiped it all off. It did leave kind of a faded image, but that's okay because it's a spooky piece. Now I'm going to reapply that stamp, taking it off the block so that I can push it down into the bezel with my fingers. And that turned out much better. Going to add our little raven. And then with my Sharpie, I'm just going to go in and doctor up some of those branches, give them a little bit more oomph and color and contrast. And then we're going to let that dry so that I can come back to it and resin it. But in the meantime, let's decoupage a pendant. I'm telling you, we're going to try everything here. You know, if you've seen my videos, that I love decoupaging Resincrete. So why not try a little mini pendant? I've got these really cool Halloween napkins with crows, ravens, and branches on them. So we're going to stick with that theme again for this piece, but don't worry, I've got some more flowery things coming if that's more your vibe. We're just going to cut out the shape we want, get some Mod Podge, and paint that on. Put our little napkin piece down in there, and finish off another coat of Mod Podge. And then this water pen comes in great for taking the edges off. They just kind of disintegrate with it. Then you can clean it up and get it ready for your next layer. I'm just taking clear UV resin for this first layer and putting it over the top of the raven. Work it to the edges, pop the bubbles, give it a cure. And here's our first layer. I think it needs something else, not quite vintage looking for me. I'm going to take some of this caramel colored transparent UV resin. The great thing about these colored resins is you don't have to mix them and you don't have to worry about them curing because they're made for that. And this gives it just a little bit of a faded, kind of an old newspaper look, which I really love for the theme we're doing today. Is there a theme? I don't know, but we're just playing and having fun. And that's what you should do too. Just have fun. Don't worry about how they come out, because I'm telling you, not all these come out fantastic. Now that our watercolored piece is dry, we are ready to move on with our resin. I'm going to use some more mica powders around the edge like we did with our first one to kind of give it that smoky coming out from the ethers of the dark vignette look. And once that's cured, I think let's try this purple colored UV resin. Again, it's a translucent pigmented resin. And I'm just going to put that around the edges. And I love the colors that it makes when combined with the watercolor underneath. You could totally do this like a sunset theme or something not spooky if you wanted to. I'm going to cure that, and then I'm going to fill the rest up with a combination of clear and purple just so it's not quite as dark. And I've got to say, I'm not in love with this piece. It just turned out too dark for what I was going for, but I learned a lot. I used a lot of resin trying to get it to where I wanted, and sometimes that happens, but don't freak out about it. Just say, okay, that was a learning experience. We're gonna move on. Okay, let's get away from the dark and moody and let's do a heart. I think these red roses and flowers, they're kind of like a wild rose, would look great and still kind of have that vintage vibe in this heart piece. And I just love the way the white, the gold, and the red pop and the colors work together. And again, I'm just gonna layer different sections of these stickers. These are the ones that are not UV. They're very delicate, very paper-like. And I like it just like that. So let's top coat this with just some clear resin and leave it as is. I don't even think I'm gonna dome this one. I might just leave it kind of flat at the surface. For some reason, I just am liking it that way. It's simple, it's elegant, it works. Now for this cool Victorian looking piece. I just love the way the Resincrete domed up on it. And these stickers have that Victorian vibe, so I'm just gonna go for this. There's just so many things you could do with this idea. I'm just trying to give you all ideas just to get your wheels turning so that you can come up with some of your own creations. And I hope that these videos inspire you to do that. Oops, my Resincrete did not adhere to this closed back bezel. It did to the other ones, but not this one, which I kind of wondered if that would happen, and it sure did, but it's no big deal. We're just gonna glue that right back in with some E6000, let that dry, and we'll come back to it and top coat it in a bit. But let's move on to another one of our closed back bezels. The Resincrete held firm in this one. It must have just been something about the other one where it didn't. And we're gonna go for the Zen look again with just the black. So we're gonna get out a bird stamp. There's our little bird. I went back and forth on this. At first I blotted it to fade the colors, and then I went back in with a Sharpie and popped them back out. I'm telling you, I'm all over the place. I decided to go in with just the white transparent colored UV resin and quickly decided it's too much white. It faded it too much. I wiped it all off with an alcohol wipe. Keep alcohol wipes on hand because they're great for wiping stuff off, wiping your gloves, wiping all that resin yucky off. Instead, I'm gonna mix it with part clear and part white, so it's a bit more transparent. And here is what that finished piece looks like. Again, really simple, really zen. And now that I've got the front side of these done, I'm gonna flip them over. This is totally not necessary, but I just wanna give them a complete seal all around. So I'm taking J. Dixon's Resincrete Sealer. It's made just for this product, but you can also use it on other stone-like products. And I'm just gonna give them a quick seal with this before moving on and making my pieces out of them. And so here is our finished pieces. The first one I did is my very favorite. Of course, my experimental piece became my favorite. I'd love to know which piece is your favorite. I totally forgot to show you the top coating on our Victorian piece, but I really like it. It's very vintage and distressed looking. So tell me in the comments, did you love them? Did you hate them? Did you love one? Did you hate another? Anyway, it's fun to get that feedback. Sometimes the ones I hate, you guys love. It's just a lot of fun to read the comments. Everyone's so kind. Most everyone's kind. And I just hope that these videos give you a little inspiration to get out and create something. It's totally a healing therapy mode for me to get crafty and create, and I just want to share that with you. Have a great day, and we'll see you next time.